es así, then you should be okay. But if you're asking me, just send it to HR.
On everything you do, be really careful. There's a lot of trends lately. If you look at the different court cases, you know, employees giving other employees advice, but then if that goes to court, you giving people advices about anything, you will be in court. Because they will drag you and they will forget that you're a buddy, friend, or whatever. They will take it with you. So you just gotta be really careful, and if any questions, you know, I don't mind you talking to HR. But just be really careful because there's all of these new trends going on out there, and you don't wanna be part of that.
That question was asked by me when I terminated an employee.
Actually, wasn't
I
just
did,
you.
I did ask Joe, but I'm glad that I asked him, because I wasn't sure, that's why I had gone up to him to ask him.
But there's more people and there's other cases that has happened. There's one case that I actually terminated the person. And this person called all the staff, asking every single one for a letter, a recommendation, and they all came. And so you have to be really, really careful. And, you know, I'm not gonna share the reason why that person was terminated. It was for a different department that's no longer under me. But many people will do that. And if you look at cases, you can look on the internet, you know, it's just very common.
I'm glad you asked.
I did, I'm glad.
Yeah, because you never know, you never know. I'm getting one of those scam, likely, you get a bunch of them too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's recruitment. Do you guys have any questions? Anybody else? No? Robert? You seem really engaged in this presentation. But if you guys don't have any questions right now, because you guys have work on your mind, later on, you guys can always send me an email. Say, oh God, you said this, but I think it's wrong, or I just read something somewhere else, or I remember from a training that I took a couple of years ago, and then we can work that out, we can clarify, okay? So the next topic is the pay time off policy. This one should be pretty straightforward, okay? Pay time off. So PTO is earned as you work. So that's for part-time and full-time employees. You don't get it automatically, right? As you work, you start getting it, you start earning it. Now, what BMBV does is they do an allotment, like a bank, like an account, where if you're full-time, they say, if you're full-time, you're gonna be able to hit 120 hours for the year, right? So that, basically they're telling you, know what, the max that you can have in your bank at the end of the year is 120. So you can use it up to 120. Better you earn it as you go. That's why full-time employees can also go into the negative, because you haven't earned it, and you earn it as you go. The more hours you work as a part-timer, the closer you get to a full-time earn rate. Okay, so if you're only working 20 hours, you're not gonna earn as much as somebody that works 30. Okay, so that goes for the people that are putting overtime hours too. So the overtime hours are excluded from PTO. Okay, so if you have employees that are working overtime hours, and they're under the impression that they're gonna be able to earn all this extra PTO, that's not the case. Only regular hours is the earned PTO. Okay, so that's the first thing. For new employees can take PTO after they've been with us for 3 months. So once an employee has been here for 3 months, you guys can start approving their PTO. And I know PTO is a challenge, especially for you guys, because you guys have to make sure that the participants have services year-round. So for those, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you need an additional person to cover because your panel or your department, is say, you know what, we have all these employees and they all have been here for 10, 15 years. They all have 200 hours of PTO or 160 hours of PTO. There's no way that I can manage. I need a way. You guys can work with Margarita and Joe to see if you can find some sort of arrangement where people can take their PTO but then the participants can get the services that they need. It may require pulling employees from other areas, from other departments, but you guys can work that out with your managers.
One of the things that we discussed with Mr. Ortiz, our CFO, was that if they're working 20 hours for that week and they do not wanna go on vacation, we can talk to them and say, you want us to pay the extra 20 on PTO, but collect a signature, so that way it doesn't look like we are forcing PTO and taking the time off away from them. And you know, most of them won't be happy to get paid for it than losing it.
Sí. So I'll just add a little bit. So if you have an employee that has already been here for 10, 15, 20 years, and they, for whatever reason, on any given week, they only work 20 hours, and you see that they have a lot of earned hours, they have a lot of PTO just sitting there. What you can do is you can approach the employee and say, you know what, this week you didn't work as many hours as you normally work. I can take from your PTO and make you whole. I can make you a 40-hour employee for this week. And of course, the employee will say yes or no. Or if you have a situation where, you know what, maybe I can do it here, just give the employee 5 hours here, 10 hours here, that way at the end of the year they don't lose. You can just talk to Joe and Margarita and say, you know what, is it okay if I use it here? And they say yes or no. And then you can talk to the employee. But that's some discretion. The only thing that you cannot do when it comes to the PTO is go beyond the 40 hours per week. Okay? So if the employee already worked 40 hours, or they worked overtime, you can't go in there and then dump an additional 20 or 30 hours of PTO on top of what they already worked. It's only to get them up to the 40. Negative PTO during the first 6 months of the year, January to June, and this is in the policy too, so it's a good idea to kind of, I know the HR policies can be, como se dice, exhausting to read, because they're really wordy, but if you know them inside out, it'll make your job so much easier. If somebody comes in and asks you a question, you'll be able to just answer it, and then they'll be on your way. As opposed to trying to figure it out right then and there. You're gonna spend more time trying to figure it out, and if you invest an hour or two, actually going to them, working out some scenarios. But going back to the negative PTO, during the first 6 months of the year, you can approve up to 40 hours of negative PTO. So for those of you that have a lot of employees, and you've had a situation where they all want to take time off in Thanksgiving or Christmas, you can start right now. You know what? Okay, well, once we get to the second half of the year, we can talk about the second half of the year, but I do need you to start taking time now, because you're gonna end up at the end of the end of the year with a bunch of hours, and I may or may not be able to approve them, right? One of the things that we've said, and I've come out here and said, is that the responsibility for scheduling PTO is the employees. They're supposed to come to you, right? But by the same token, you're gonna have situations where the employee comes to you and they keep asking for time that you cannot approve because somebody else is already out, you're short-staffed. So in that situation, the way that you can say, you know what, this employee always says that I never approve their time off, but they always ask for the days that they know they can't take because somebody else is taking. And you have employees like that, right? They always ask for Christmas, even though they just took it. They took Christmas last year, and you know that they can't take it again. You're gonna give somebody else a chance to take Christmas, but they'll still come. So in that case, you can tell the employee, you know what, you schedule at least half of your PTO hours, the first half of the year, and the second half, the second half of the year. So for me, I'll give you an example. So I get 160 hours of PTO. So yo solo, me as an employee, I have to make sure that I take 80 hours from January to June. That way I have 80 hours from July to December. If for whatever reason I'm not able to take time the second half of the year, I know that I can always carry over 40. Okay. So if you have an employee and they accrue 200 hours, try to find a way so they can take 100 hours in the first 6 months of the year, so at least they get a chance to rest a little bit. And then the second half of the year, then you guys work with them. That's the way I would do it. Take whatever bank they have or whatever you think they're gonna earn, cut it in half and say, you have this much time to take this, and then this much time to take that. Because if you let them get into the second half of the year, and they have 200 hours of PTO, forget it.
We used to have a policy, but I don't think we have that policy anymore, that if somebody decided to buy a ticket to go somewhere without discussing with the supervisor, and then they said, oh, I'm going on vacation this time, and I already bought a ticket, and the company wasn't responsible for the purchase of that ticket. We don't have that policy anymore, do we?
It was an unwritten policy.
Okay.
And it's happened to us within our department, and it's happening right now with another department. So I had a lady who she came and she talked to me, she said she was gonna take this wonderful trip, once in a lifetime, her and her boyfriend. She was super excited, and then today I see her, and I'm not lying, this is true. Today I see her, and she's been telling me this since last year, that she's been saving up for this really nice trip to Europe. Y luego le digo, how are you? Se mira agüita. The same way that you guys looked when I first came in. But I was like, ¿qué tiene? Se mira agüita. She's like, oh, I'm a little bit sad. Well, what happened? Was my supervisor told me that I can only take 15 calendar days, which is 2 weeks. The lady wanted 2.5, almost 3 weeks. So she told me she didn't give me all the time for my trip. She only gave me, pues, 2/3, para decirlo así, 2/3 of my time. I was like, oh, it's like, yeah. I said, well, have you gone to the next level? Go to the pay center director, go to the division head? And she goes, no, pues I told her and I told you. And I'm like, no, ma'am. I said, since our first conversation, I keep telling you the same thing. It's not me. I don't make decisions for the supervisors when it comes to the PTO. I was very clear with you that talk to your supervisor, let me know what she says, go to the next level. And if you absolutely need to get the division head involved, they want to talk to the division head. So I reminded her that, no, I've been telling you that I can't make decisions. She's like, no, I told you. It's like, no, ma'am. So yeah, lady, you need to go to the next level or go to the division head. It's like, no, I don't want to get anybody mad. And it's like, no, since last year you've been telling me, and since last year I've been telling you, get everybody together so they know that you're gonna ask for a bunch of time. Because chances are that you're gonna say no. If a pass attendant comes to you and they ask for 3 or 4 weeks off, what are you gonna say?
No.
Maybe, maybe not, right? So,
Because it
exactly.
all depends, like if you are fully staffed and you can work with employee, there's times that you can be flexible and accommodate with employee, but there's some other times that you really cannot. And that is very good that you're sharing that experience, because some of the challenges that as supervisors we all have is that sometimes the employee might be under the impression the supervisor said, no, I'm gonna go to HR, and they think that you can say yes or change the situation, and sometimes that results in a negative work environment that is reflected in patient care. So thank you for clarifying that.
That's it. Because we have it, and they'll come to us and think that we can overrule supervisor. I would say there's very few things where we can tell the supervisor what to do. Mostly we're just there for support, to make your lives a little bit easier. At the end of the day, you guys make decisions. We just try to help you, we just try to give you the tools to make better decisions or good decisions. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for managing your people.
And the one time that you have that employee that you can accommodate for them because you have enough people to cover, and then later on somebody else asks for the same, but that time you can't, then you're judged as a supervisor as you have, favoritism. And that's another trait that if you read, everybody's using that word for anything, favoritism, when they don't get the weight or whatever it is that they want, they don't get it. So you have to be careful. Yeah, that one time that you can do it, you might wanna think about it because, okay, yes, I can accommodate it for you, I can do it, but then later on, if I cannot do it for somebody else, it's gonna create all these problems. So that's sometimes, even if you can, you might have to say, I can't do the whole month, let's work something else. Let's do 3 weeks, come back to work, maybe we'll do another week later on, so it doesn't look that bad.
As to the next piece is that PTO must be requested in advance. So if an employee comes to you, and it's like a same day thing, it's like, hey, you know what, I need to be off tomorrow. You guys have discretion. If they didn't give you sufficient notice, you can say no. And they say, well, why? I'm just gonna be absent. Then you can explain to them, you know what, you didn't give me a chance to properly find coverage for you. If you decide to be absent, there will be consequences. My recommendation is that you take a different approach. That you say, you know what, let me bring somebody else in here, because you sometimes you want to witness, because you never know where the conversation's gonna go. So if I come to you and I say, you know what, I need to take tomorrow and XYZ off, the next couple of days off, and that's it, it's gonna be PTO, and you're like, oh, you know what, you're not giving me any lead time to see if I can find coverage for you. Let me talk to my scheduler, let me see what they say, right? You bring in the scheduler, you can say, you know what does the schedule look like? And they say, you know what, well, it's gonna be really hard for us to find coverage. Right there you have a witness or you can have Joe Margarita, and you can tell them right there, you know what, wait here, give us a few minutes so we can see if we can find coverage, right, and then we'll tell you. And then you can go back and you guys can talk and you can say, she's asking for these days, I don't think I can find coverage in this short of a time frame. Can we just go back and tell them? And then you go back and say, you know what, we looked, but we couldn't find anything, I wish we could. But you're gonna find something, they'll turn around and say, you know what, well, it's because I have an emergency in the family, this is happening. If that comes out, then you guys, if it's a real emergency, then they'll bring in documentation. So that might make it into that might turn it from a PTO request to like a request for leave, right? But that's one of the ways that we were able to do it. We had an employee that from one day to the next, same thing, she wanted 2.5 weeks. And I'm like, so we brought her in, I said, it's not gonna happen. I said, whoa, too bad, I already got the tickets. I'm looking at her and I was like, well, you're gonna have to go back and say something. Because why would you do that? You're supposed to set the example, you're always criticizing me, right? When I don't do stuff así exactly by the book, because I'm trying to be a little bit flexible. But we were able to help her out, but we told her very strictly, you're not gonna take any more PTO the rest of the year. So you get any more PTO the rest of the year. So it just depends how you wanna manage it. But yeah, if you allow them to do that, they're gonna keep doing it over and over. So you guys set your own procedures internally. I need at least a week's notice to find coverage.
I have a question. What about, like I have an employee that did that, and is that we didn't give her that day off that she needed because like it was from one day to the next, but then she brought in a doctor's note.
She was asking, she brought in a doctor's note? For that one, we changed the policy. Great question. So we changed the policy. The attendance standards policy, read that one as well, HR 20.0.
HR 20.0?
20.0. So what that says is that there's two types of absences, scheduled and unscheduled. If they schedule the absence, that means you gave them approval, which means everything's fine. You said it was okay. If it's unscheduled, it means they didn't give you proper notice and you said no. If it's unscheduled, you can hold them to whatever procedures are in the policy. Verbal, lo que sea, lo que diga ahí. And if you had issues in the past, you can take those into consideration. She's done this to me a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, so it's unscheduled. So just, you know what, it's an unscheduled policy. There's no such thing as an excused absence unless you say, you know what, it's okay. According to our policies, it's unscheduled, you're subject to a policy. So that's the way you can address it. And then the last piece is the carry forward. So employees can carry forward up to 40 hours of PTO. So you do have a cushion. You do have a cushion. Once you get to the end of the year and the employee has a bunch of hours, you still have a cushion where you say, you know what, the employee can transfer over 40, so now I only have to work with whatever's left over. Okay? Pero sí les recomiendo eso. Corten las horas en mitad y trátenlo como 2 años diferentes. Enero a junio y de julio a diciembre. Mitad y mitad. You'll make your work a lot more easier.
Alfredo, can you please provide us with clarification on the opposite? Let's say that you do have cushion to transfer for the next year, but when you don't have any more, but you need to be absent, can you please elaborate a little bit more about it?
Okay, so if you have a situation where the employee doesn't have any PTO, they've exhausted their PTO, and all of a sudden they come to you and they want to take time off, okay? You have discretion to say no, okay? But what I do recommend is that you look at the situation. Okay, a lot of people criticize me because they think that I'm just here for the employees. And it says, actually, I'm here for everybody, right? Because sometimes what management does, and I do it sometimes too, is that I become something other than a person. So I turn into an entity, like the company, which I'm still a person, and we're dealing with people all around. So you need to find that human element and say, you know what, even though you don't have any PTO left, what's going on? Why do you want to be absent from work? Well, what's going on? If the person tells you something that you feel you need to notify us, just pick up the phone. So the person doesn't have any more PTO, exhausted it, they're actually in the negative, and they come to you and says, you know what, my husband's gonna have a procedure. What are you gonna do?
Ask for proof.
refer him to HR.
Oh, okay.
See, okay, he's gonna have a procedure. This is a question that might be too sensitive, because you don't want them telling you, he's gonna do this, he doesn't hacer esto, no hacer lo otro. Se puede o no se puede? Best thing to do is, you know what, yeah, I think we need to talk to HR so they can see what qualifies for a leave, and then we'll be able to handle it. And then we can talk to them. And then we can say yes or no. We can say, you know what, that's a serious medical condition. This person qualifies for FMLA, which is a federal law, which entitles an employee to leave. So there's nothing that you can do. We've had situations where the supervisors say, well, can't he change your leave? And it's like, no, it's an FMLA leave. And if they wanna take it right now, they can take it right now. Well, can they just wait a couple of months? It's like, no, it's a federal law. If they gave us everything that they need to give us, then we need to honor that. So it depends what it is. If they come to you and say, well, just give me a day, or give me a couple of days, because somebody's getting married, pregnant, somebody's getting married, what you can do there is you can say, okay, so who's getting married? You can say, well, it's a daughter, it's the only daughter, they give you sufficient notice, and you give me 2 weeks notice, maybe I can work with you. If they come to you from one day to the next, you can always say to them, you know what, normally weddings don't happen from one day to the next.
Yeah.
Normally they take time, you have to spend a lot of money and make all these arrangements. You can always say, you know what, I can't or I can. Put yourselves in their shoes. If you cannot do it for whatever reason, you know what, if you would have told me when you first found out, I could have started making arrangements then for now, but you're putting me in a really difficult position. A very good way that you guys can kind of help keep your face, save face, is say, you know what, let me see what I can do. But there's no guarantee that I'll be able to do anything for you because you didn't give me any notice. And then you can check. No hay nada ahí, just come back and say, you know what, I checked and we can't do anything. Y se quedó. So that depende de lo que sea, but also put yourselves in the position. Yeah, sometimes well, yeah, you may end up creating more work for somebody else, but in the long run, that also promotes retention, promotes loyalty. I'm sure that when you've had employees that you've kind of gone out of your way to help them, you pick up the phone, I need a coverage, oh my, I stole you. So it's give and take. If you only want to take, you're not going to have really good relationships with the employees. You also have to give sometimes.
Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes you'll have employees, every chance they get, I leave early today, I leave late, on every Friday, and I leave early, calling in sick every Monday. And it gets to a point that you're like, okay, hold on a second. I work with you, and let's do something. Because we had people here in the past that, a good example, I'm not mentioning names, every single day, I gotta go pick up my kids because I don't have anyone to pick them up. And I go, okay, I understand, it's not that crazy, go ahead. But then when it happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and being a part of yourself, and like, I never asked my boss, and not that I'm better than anybody else, but I'm not calling my boss and telling her, hey, can I leave early so I go pick up my kids? And then every single day, then it becomes a trend, and it looks really bad, so it's not that easy, it can be a little difficult.
So I see it from two point of view. So the first one, yes, it can be abusive. There's some employees that kind of know the system and they know they can kind of play it and be like, you know what, I'll ask now. And they can overdo it. From the other angle is that as it is, we already demand a lot of employees from you guys too, and from the past attendants. So a little bit of give, you can put a stop to it. You can say, wait, it's already the third day, the fourth day. Yeah, I can't do this every day. And they're like, oh, okay, fine. You can tell them, you know what, do you need a little bit of time to find arrangements? I can do this for maybe another week, but you need to find the appropriate arrangements so this doesn't happen on an ongoing basis. Sometimes they need a week while they find a reliable, I don't know, sitter or somebody that's reliable that can help them. So sometimes they just need a window of time to get there. But from the other angle, and you mentioned this, the favoritism. Sometimes the reason why supervisors don't let good employees have that is because they don't want to be accused of being playing favorites. But sometimes you have employees that they go above and beyond everybody else, and they're like, you know what? Is your work complete? Eso es lo que hacemos nosotros. So So we used to have issues with that, where places, oh, this employee just gets up and leaves, she's always going to the baseball game for the kids, it's like, okay, so I have a process that I go to. When they come in, it's like, I need to leave right now. Did you do what I asked you to do? Yes. Is this done? Yes. Is this done? Yes. What about this? Oh, no, you do it before you leave. So it depends. There's some employees that they're so good that little bit of, ¿cómo se dice? Ay, can I leave half an hour early? It's not that big of an issue. But from the other angle, if they're abusing it, then yeah, it's an issue.
And I think what makes it a little bit more difficult is like, for instance, if they're in the negative PTO, when compensation is not being sick, that's something that maybe it can be easily arranged. But when the expectation is for payment, that's me, in my own experience, that's where I feel a little bit uncomfortable, because if something happens to that employee, or that employee might not come back, then that put the supervisor in a very difficult situation. So with that being said, my understanding is that that's on the discretion of the supervisor, if the supervisor wants to allow for that, right?
The pay or?
The pay, when they're in the negative.
The pay, it depends on the situation and whether they're exempt or non-exempt. So if it's a salary employee, like a supervisor or a registered nurse, then I would say pick up the phone and talk to HR. So, one of the things that I personally adhere to is that I'd rather pay for that half an hour, pay for that hour, than have a bigger issue in my hand where I'm having an agency knocking on my door, sending me letters, requesting all these files and records. Half an hour that you pay to an RN might be what?
But when you said whole day?
Pues digo, it depends on the situation. If it's a full day absence, y no tiene nada, you cannot pay, you don't have to pay them.
Right.
You don't have to pay them, so it depends on the situation.
You can always excuse the absent, excuse unpaid, right?
The only thing that I do in that type of situation, because you have to go through your scenario, your questions, you can say, okay, so they were absent the full day, they didn't show up to work for whatever reason, they don't have any more PTO, it's a full day absence. Let me ask you, how was your day? What did you do? Because that employee can always turn around and say, you know what, pues I got to do what I needed to do. I got done early, and then I logged onto the computer and I spent the rest of the day doing documentation. Or I got on my cell phone and I started calling people. So they did work. So you guys have to ask those questions. So just pick up the phone. You can direct them. You can tell them, you know what, fine, I'm gonna give you the day, but I don't want you to do any work. Wait until tomorrow when you come in. If that person doesn't follow your instructions, you can say, le dije que no trabajara, and you still went in there and you did documentation in the EMR, like I said, even though I told you to take the full day to do your personal business, and you still did it, that's insubordination. You pay them because they did do work, and then you counsel them, you coach them, or you write them up. So it just depends on the situation. That's it, just ask HR.
I think this, and I agree with you, the best thing is to talk to HR. Some of us that have been here for a long time, it was different before. You know, with the negatives, we were encouraged not to use negatives, especially when people either make comments about quitting the job. I'm tired of this job, the way I eat, I look for another job. Because then the fear in the past was, you get the -40, and then they quit, and the company lost all that money. And there's a chance for that to happen, you know, before and now. But before, they didn't wanna take that chance, because too many people were doing that. Now, the trend is a little different, that's not really happening. When in doubt, call HR, call Alfredo. You know, he's been there for us. One of the things that I wanna mention is that the PAS, they're making more money because, you know, not just Alfredo, but he put a lot of effort into trying to figure out what that race needed to be. If we have a hard time now, it was a lot worse to hire people. So it was a battle for 2 or 3 years, and he was there to help us out and help him out, and thanks to guys and Alfredo and the people that were involved, they got a raise, so.
So it was really you guys pushing for it.
You know, because you were there, we were nowhere.
No, but get the credit.
I